The Biden administration opposing Israel's plans for Jewish expansion in the disputed West Bank. What does this mean? For more, let's bring in the host of the Yair Netanyahu Show and international relations analyst Yair Netanyahu and former senior advisor in both the Trump and Bush administrations and a Newsmax contributor, Christian White. Gentlemen, good morning. Nice to have you both on.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning.
Yair, for people just waking up at home who might not know what this means, take us through what's going on here.
Well, this is outrageous. You know, Israel is entitled to the West Bank not only according to biblical history and archaeology, with countless of proofs in archaeology, but also according to international law by the San Remo Accords that was later ratified by the United States Congress, by the United Kingdom, and by the United Nations. So even the previous administration, the Trump administration, recognized that Israel has the settlements are not going against international law. So this is just going back to the Obama-era agenda, and it's very radical, and it's being hostile to the closest ally of the United States in the Middle East, while the same administration is appeasing and being friendly to Iran, which is an evil dictatorship that hates America, that's letting them get nukes, so this is absurd.
Christian, earlier today, an Israeli committee approved 2,800 new settler homes, the settler homes that Yair just mentioned in the West Bank. This is a day after the Biden administration issued their strongest condemnation yet of this Israeli settlement. What do you make of this?
I think the Biden administration, this is going to sound cynical of me, but it's trying to make Palestinian jihad great again. If you look at what President Trump did, he basically transcended the Palestinian issue. There is this fiction that if you solve the Israeli-Palestinian dispute, all the other problems in the Middle East would go away. The reality is Iran drives most of the problems in the Middle East. Not all of them, but most of them. And what Trump did was create peace between Israel and a number of additional Arab states and basically ignored the Palestinians, who are completely unreasonable, at least their government is, when it comes to dealing with Israel. Biden has tried to turn back the clock. He's restored aid to the Palestinian Authority, which inevitably makes its way to terrorists and jihadists. He's talked about creating a separate diplomatic mission in Jerusalem for the Palestinians, even though Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. Really, it seems like he has this theological devotion to the Palestinian cause that we had gotten past.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point there. Yair, are the people in Israel, are they aware yet? It's only been 9 months thus far of Joe Biden in the Oval Office, but are they aware of the very subtle change in policy when it comes to U.S.-Israeli relations?
Very much so, yes. It's a big disappointment for the Israeli public, because the Israeli public, unlike the Palestinians that celebrated 9/11 and that hate America and that prosecute Christians, Israel is the only safe haven for Christians in the Middle East. Israeli loves America and love American culture and American values, and we feel, we're a little bit betrayed by our greatest friend and ally that's picking up the side of our enemies and the enemies of the United States as well.
Christian, are you concerned that Israel's going to face any repercussions for these settlements there in the West Bank?
Israel still has pretty strong support in Congress, although its support among Democrats has declined, especially as the progressive wing has gotten more and more power within the Democrats. And this administration is not friendly with Israel, certainly didn't like former Prime Minister Netanyahu, but doesn't like the new Prime Minister, who's also conservative. Nonetheless, there's I think, limits to the amount of damage that Biden will be allowed to do politically in the United States. At least that's my hope. But, he seems to be going back to this thing of where we're acting like we're the Planning and Zoning Commission for various parts of Israel. And if you look, where else in the world do we attempt this sort of effort? Where else in the world are we this intrusive in the politics of our allies? So there's not a lot of support for that, I don't think.
All right, gentlemen, we'll keep a close eye on it. Thank you very much, Yair Netanyahu, Christian White. Thanks so much for being on with us.